Buonasera e benvenuti a chi è qui in sala e a chi ci segue online. Ringrazio come sempre l'ACME per la importantissima collaborazione nell'organizzare anche quest'anno le conferenze che finalmente possono essere anche in presenza e fruite da chi ci vuole visitare da casa. Quindi grazie davvero agli amici e collaboratori del Museo Egizio che rendono possibile questa ripartenza e questa possibilità di presentare la ricerca operata in museo e da colleghi e amici che vengono dall'estero. Passo all'inglese per to welcome my guest. I'm very delighted that you are here with us tonight. It's a double pleasure. Not only is a pleasure to have Dr. Deir here with us to present her research, but it's also important for us because it's also a new cooperation that finally we have with the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo. We have been starting a few years ago, and now we have multiform projects within the Ifao, but a very important one, and that has the presence of scholars coming from different institutions coordinated by Dr. Deir. They are coming from the Museo Egizio, of course, the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, the University College of London and the University of Pisa, and I greet here also two former PhD students at the University of Pisa on the study of wood, on the use of wood, and on the all the different information that we can retrieve from the wood. Is the work that you are conducting is very interesting because it's very multidisciplinary in its nature. Archaeobotany on some way, archaeometry to analyze the wood, but Egyptological at the same time, in order to understand how it was produced, how it was used, how the workshop were working, and how the social economic history of the el-Medina in specific, and of the society in Thebes was working. And for us, it's of particular interest, of course, because of our collection coming from the el-Medina, and it's also nice to see how, I was also in the statement of your lecture, starting from the basement of the Ifao, going to the storage that I had the honor to visit with you a couple of years ago, you can rediscover the el-Medina woodcraft from a comprehensive study. And I think that the research and what you will present to us tonight is really the work ahead of us, and shows also how important it is, this kind of research, also for collections here in Turin, because your work, the observation that you have there, what you can achieve on the result of the way that wood was crafted, give answers to us and can create a archaeological context of the objects that have been here for more than 100 years. So I give the floor to you. Thank you again for coming here, also in these difficult pandemic times. We are very glad that you could reach Turin. Thank you.
Thank you. So, is it okay for the song? Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Direttore, for welcoming me today after a long day, because the French railway start to stop me, but I fight against them, and I'm finally there, so I'm really happy. So thank you very much to the Museo Egizio for inviting me to present my work tonight. The work in progress, it's not my work, but it's a teamwork, and I'm very pleased to see my wood team tonight to speak about what we are going to do on the woods that come from Deir el-Medina. Of course, It's a pleasure to come and an honor to come in this magnificent institution, which gives a major place to the study of materials used in ancient Egypt, and in particular to wood. The choice to talk today about woodcraft in the artisan village of Deir el-Medina, located in the Luxor region, is obviously not insignificant. The collections, as we said, of the Museo Egizio and the work carried out by the museum teams on this archaeological site since Ernesto Schiaparelli in the beginning of the 20th century illustrate the close links between terrain and Deir el-Medina. The site of Deir el-Medina, an ancient Egyptian unique workman village, which was home of the artisans who work on the tombs in the Valley of the Kings and the Queens during the New Kingdom, is exceptional in many respects. It has indeed yielded a unique and particularly abundant archaeological material, offering the opportunity to combine the study of written and material sources to better understand the organization of this village and to redraw an artistic landscape that is ultimately unknown. The woodcraft production discovered in Deir el-Medina have been and is still the subject of several studies, mainly devoted to wooden furniture preserved in museum collections. If coffins constitute the majority of the corpus, the wooden objects of Deir el-Medina are diverse. Their modes and places of production are still poorly known. Fortunately, in recent years, there has been a new interest in the study of materiality and by extension of the materials themselves, studies that have been generally facilitated by the development of analytical techniques that have been developed especially on ancient Egyptian woods. This is, for example, the case here at the Museo Egizio, with the project to study the funerary equipment of Ha and his wife Merit, whose aim is to study in its entirety this unique funerary equipment mainly made of wood and discovered at Deir el-Medina. In this respect, the work we are carrying out in the field and in various collections of objects discovered in Deir el-Medina is closely linked to the research being carried out at the Museo Egizio. And of course, this collaboration that we developed since a few years ago between the French Institute in Cairo and the Museo Egizio to develop this collaboration around the wood and the study of this wood trade is the art of this project. The French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo houses an important collection of objects, the vast majority of which come from excavations shared at the beginning of the 20th century. The study of this exceptional collection, which includes objects made of various materials as stone, wood, ceramics, glass, metal, is now being carried out by various specialists whose mission is to inventory, document and publish this long-forgotten documentation. Since 2017, I've set up a multidisciplinary research project devoted to the renewed study of Deir el-Medina wooden objects as part of the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo, involving various departments of the French Institute, particularly the archaeometry pole of the Ifao, the Archives and Collections Service, as well as the archaeological mission of Deir el-Medina, directed by Cédric Larcher from the Ifao, and with the Museo Egizio. On the field, linked with this wood preserved in the Ifao, in the site of Deir el-Medina, were waiting for us hundreds of unpublished wooden objects, still stored on the field. And I will show you then how are this wood preserved on site. Originally, the wooden furniture study project of Deir el-Medina was closely linked to the PERCEA Bois project I developed at Ifao between 2017 and 2019 in collaboration with the University College of London and the University of Pisa, with the aim of analyzing and conserving the wooden object rediscovered in the basement of the French Institute. These objects, resulting from the sharing of excavations between France and Egypt, offered the opportunity to develop a large-scale research project covering a particularly vast chronological area from the first dynasties to the Byzantine period. Since 2020, as a continuation of the PERCEA Bois project, in collaboration with various international institutions as the Museo Egizio, the EBENES program has expanded the analysis of wooden objects through a diachronic and multidisciplinary approach. This unpublished material, which currently includes several dozen complete and fragmentary wooden objects from various periods and origins, form the basis of the project, which aims to carry out a complete study both from archaeometric point of view, with the analysis of woods and other materials, the carbon-14 analysis, study of tool marks, the traces of uses, and also from the point of view of conservation and documentation. Faced with the immensity of the task and the scientific potential offered by this rich archaeological material, I therefore decided to create a team of specialists in Egyptian wooden objects in order to develop this research and to cross our views. The wood team in charge of the study of the wooden object of Deir el-Medina is made up of 5 members who work in collaboration with the Restoration team that ensure the conservation of the archaeological material. Anna Giulia De Marco and Lisa Sartini, doctors in Egyptology from the University of Pisa, Paolo Marini, currently curator in the Museo Egizio, Margaret Serpico from the University College of London, which is specializing in the resins and varnishes used on wooden funerary equipment, and myself for the study of material and analysis of the wood species used. Various collaborators are associated with the wood team, such as Chiara Spinazzi, who is from the University of Venice and is currently developing research on textile craftsmanship in Copenhagen, a project to which I will return then. Within the Ifao wood collection, wooden object from the previous excavations at Deir el-Medina is the most abundant, offering the opportunity to cross-check the analysis of this object brought back to Cairo with those currently stored on site. However, before conducting the study of these objects, it was essential to exhume them from the basement, document and repackage them. One of the objectives of the Ifao project is to carry out a comprehensive material analysis of this object in order to identify the species employed and their uses, to make the link between the object preserved at the Ifao and thus distributed both on the side that are unpublished and in the various museum collections by combining direct analysis of the furniture and comparing the data collected with the various reports left by their discoverers. This vast task was then carried out in 2017 in collaboration with the Archives and Collection Department in the Ifao, and then continued in 2020 by the members of the wood team, making it possible to draw up an inventory of these objects. The collection of woods from Deir el-Medina and preserved at the Ifao illustrate the diversity of the wooden furniture found in the village. This includes various species of funerary equipment as elements of sarcophagi, bases of statues of individuals inscribed with funerary description, as you can see there. I make a complete picture of these bases that are very interesting because we can make the link with the names that are inscribed on this basis with people that were living in Deir el-Medina and having other objects that are dispersed in various collections. This is the objective, to make a link between all these objects that move away. We have also so many pieces of furniture, as seats, tools, one headrest, various and many boxes that are still to be studied and analyzed. The headrests of Deir el-Medina are under publication by Julian Posch, who will publish them not only on wood, but also on different materials in the near future. So these objects are so numerous. They were forgotten in the basement, and now they find back the light, so we can give them a new life. There is a lot of objects of different kinds, of different typologies, and we can have like these pieces, decorated pieces of craft wood coming for different contexts that are very interesting because we make the link with all we see in the museums and on the sites, and we can understand the function of different objects and different type of decoration to have a better idea of the development of some topics, of some details, of some type of woods that were used too. And of course, one of the main objects of this collection are the combs and the toiletries objects that are under studies, and I will speak about them just after, but please don't hate me after that. So these dozens of objects preserved at the Ifao and currently being analyzed were only the visible part of the iceberg. Indeed, hundreds of wooden objects still stored on the archaeological site of Deir el-Medina had been waiting to be studied since the discovery by Bernard Bruyère between 1922 and 1951. These few photographs illustrate more clearly the magnitude of the task ahead. The quantity of the object to be inventoried, catalogued, repackaged, and analyzed could be considered an unattainable or even utopian challenge. This first impression, which sometimes assails us too, is quickly countered by the new result we have already obtained and by the determination of the various members of the wood team to bring this research to a successful conclusion. On this picture, you have an image of the way of these pieces of wood were stored in different magazines that were former tombs, of course, and you have to know that these objects were repackaged, placed in these different tombs by two scientific members of the Ifao in the 50s, as one of them was Jean Yoyot. And it was very funny to find this report about the project of repacking, putting every type of object in different magazines. So we find this, this report, and he was speaking about the pieces of wood. And for him, it was something that could be fixed for 15 days. It was okay, and the project was done. But when you see the quantity of the object, of course they are broken. Of course they are so numerous, but this is our chance. They are broken so we can make a lot of analysis without destroying something. Now the analysis of wood, I will show you then, are very small pieces to take from the object. And now with all these objects at our disposal, and the Ministry of Antiquity and Tourism is really okay for this analysis on material as wood, so it's a chance. But when you see all this, it's a very fantastic chance. We have an access, a really privileged access to this material, to this construction, to these artisans. So that's why this task looks crazy, but it's a nice craziness, I think so. So first we discovered all these pieces of wood, but then we discovered a new one. And past the shock of this discovery, we take everything on count and we decided to organize the work. This magazine was a small one called the Magazine of Woods. So with this name, of course, we were ready to find things very numerous. And finally, it was this reorganizing thing of the small object made by Yoyot. In this small magazine, he decided to put all the tools, all the small pieces, at the difference of the pieces of the coffins or biggest objects. And it was quite well organized at the first point. And we found on this other very beautiful objects and very interesting on the point of the techniques, because of course when you have so much tools, so much object for the life, you have so many information to understand this society and here this village of workmen. So yes, we had to organize everything and reconditionate all these objects, and it's a long task that is not over. And we take all the baskets out, having so many time of reorganizing, checking, giving a number to everything, and repackage them in new boxes. It was the occasion, remember when we were checking all these ends of coffins that were placed in different baskets. And I think that it was something that Bruyère gave to us. We were taking all these ends from the baskets, and I remember I was taking all. And at the end, in the middle of these wooden ends, I had a real hand of mummy. And I screamed. But it was like something, of course, it was done to have this reaction. And it was very nice to have this continuation of all the people working on this object during the time. And we had a good moment. And then we have to reorganize and pack everything. And also, of course, to fix the objects that were dispersed in different places, in different magazines. And we had the good surprise to identify and reconstruct some of these objects, like, for example, this Shabti box. Because, of course, the study of the woodcraft in Deir el-Medina is not speaking just about big object, beautiful one, complete one. No, it's the chance to have a complete vision on small one, bigger one, and understand the uses of the woods and the practices of the craftsmen. So when we found this, and that we were happy, as you can see, to find a complete box, it was the occasion to discuss and to analyze this type of object, the Shabti boxes, thanks to the collaboration of Paolo Marini, who came at this moment in the team to help us on the study of the typology of this type of object. And it was very, very useful. And the team was bigger after that. It was nice. And we have so many to continue, so it's perfect, this fantastic collaboration with the Museo Egizio will never end, be ready. It's something that can take a long time. So the result of the study of these Shabti boxes and all the fragments that we discovered will be published in the proceedings of the colloquium organized in the Museo Egizio that was called the Deir el-Medina in the Kaleidoscope, and it will be the occasion to show the publication of this object. So I was speaking about the combs. So on the left of this picture, you have the combs of the Ifao, but in the middle, you have the combs that we discovered on site. And you can realize how many there are. It's a chance, of course, but for me, it was like a nightmare to sample all these combs. But it was the only way to know if same type of woods were used for the same type of combs, if the typology was concording with the use of woods that were used. So I sampled 365 combs, And I was very happy to see that the majority of these combs were made of Acacia nilotica, but I will come back then about this. That was very interesting for the study of this object that are really known and that you can see everywhere in every museum. These combs, wooden combs, in all the collection around the world, you will find them. But we were so surprised to realize that there is no typology of this object that are so known by everyone. So it was the occasion with the number of this object to draw a clear typology that will help also our colleagues, the scientific committee, to classify easily this object with a complete study of the material used. And this object, these combs, so are part of the toiletries object that will be the subject of the first catalogue of the object that will be published in the Ifao about all the woods that we have on the site and in the basement of the Ifao. It was very important to sample all these combs. That was the beginning of that. But at the same time, and I will show you then after, it was sampling also the coffins. But about the combs, what was interesting, it was the number of them, to have a real knowledge of the use of these woods for an object of daily life. And that's an object that has to be strong because you have to use it every day. And the use of the Acacia nilotica, it's a local wood. And it was interesting to see how frequently it's used. We just have some objects from this village, from the el-Medina, that are made from other species, mainly local woods, but of hardwood. So it's very interesting. Of course, we are not speaking about the royal family production, and it's something else that I will speak about then. But it was also very interesting in the study of this very simple object to make the link between the materiality, these combs, and the text that we discovered in Deir el-Medina, because we have a lot of information with the ostraca and non-literary text that gives a lot of information about the economy, the use of the object, the material used. And we have some texts that are speaking about the use and the fabrication of combs made of wood called chenejet. And this wood was supposed to be Acacia nilotica, but with this, you can compare that, yes, in the material, we have this link between the text and the reality of the object. The majority of them are made of this chenejet wood, and we can make the link like that. It's just a small thing, but it will be very interesting to develop this study, to make the link between the text that we have and the mention of some species and the reality of the materiality. For example, there is another problem that is something about ebony. We know ebony, this name for the ebony wood, the black wood, but we know the link ebony is ebony, but finally, what is this real ebony used in the craft? Because we have this black wood, very dark, and that are not from the family of the EBENES, of the real family of the ebony. It's d'Albergia, another wood that is growing in the south, in Ethiopia, in the south, and Sudan, and more in the south. But the idea is to understand, with this systematic analysis of the woods and the type of woods, if some terms can be generic, like ebony could be black woods, and no information about the specificity of the wood, or if it's exactly one species, like the chenejet and the acacia. It's one of the objectives of this global study. not just in Deir el-Medina, of course, but it's a lot of work, but it's interesting. We had also the happiness for Lisa Sartini, I think so, who did her PhD about the black coffins dated to the New Kingdom, to rediscover some pieces coming from coffins. This vast project aims to make the link between all that we have on the field, but all that disappeared from the field. Here, you have the example of the coffin of Setao. It's an example really relevant because the planks were still stored on site. The planks were not in good condition. They were broken, they were not very well preserved, but the top of the coffin box is now in Warsaw, in the Museum of Warsaw. And it's beautiful, of course. And when you look at this part and the planks that we have on site, you can't imagine it comes from the same object. But fortunately, that's why we need some specialists of the question. And it was the occasion to have a complete vision of this object with a complete analysis of everything, of course. But it was also the occasion, the opportunity to open the documentary file of this owner, because Setao was living there in Deir el-Medina. He was servant in the place of truth, servant in the great place. That are two titles specific to the artisans of Deir el-Medina. And he was also servant in the place of beauty. That is a title worn by the artisans of the Valley of the Queens. He was someone really important, and these coffins were discovered by chance by Bernard Bruyère in 1933. I said by chance because the roof and the construction of the tomb was damaged because the roof fell down. So Bruyère discovered this tomb that remained untouched, and all the funerary furnishing was there. The excavator archives tell us that it also contained 4 black bottom coffins, 3 of which were identified by the mission in the magazine in 2018. That of Setao, that of the Lady Bakisset, and an anonymous coffin. As Lisa Sartini has shown, these 3 coffins show the classic black coffin decoration. The 4 sons of Horus and Anubis are represented on the coffins of Bakisset, I will show you then, and the anonymous woman, while the coffin of Setao that you have here on the file, the gods are accompanied by Thoth opening a door in the sky. However, 2 coffins, that of Setao and that of the anonymous woman, have a very original, distinctive feature. They have a pyramid represented on the bowl, respectively a white pyramid with a red door at the foot and a yellow pyramid at the end of the 2 side panels. And it was this sign, that Lisa identified. She was not working on the team at this moment, but we were working with her by phone. And we say to her, we see a pyramid. And she was saying, it's Setao coffin, it's Setao. So it was the moment when we said, okay, we have the pieces of the box. And it was the moment when you can reconstruct object totally dispersed. It's a very important moment, because with this, if you can't have access to the top of the coffin, but you have access to the planks of the box, it's a lot of information you can compile. So this work on these coffins were done with Lisa and Margaret Serpico, who studied the resins used on these planks. And the other, so this is the other plank of the Setao, the famous pyramid, the white one on the top, and a picture of the discovery of the tomb. You see, it's very simple. There is no decoration. It's just a funerary chamber with the coffins and the material stored there. And this coffin was also discovered in this tomb, the one of Menreper from another tomb, and on the top of the slide, and on the back it was the one of Bakiset that was studied and rediscovered in the framework of this project. It was very interesting to analyze all the woods of this object as a systematic analysis, not just one plank, not just one tenon, everything, to have a real idea of how these objects were made, and if we can compare the techniques used between one coffin to another one, and then, of course, identify a craftsman or a workshop. This is something we can do using the object as a source of the research. Finally, we come from the object to the craftsman. We don't start with the craftsman and then to the object. The object, the manufactured object, is the source of our research. And we are lucky to have so much of them in the field and in the basement of the Ifao. And in all the collections around the world, of course, so yeah, it's a lot. But it was interesting to analyze this object and realize that they were made with a systematic use of one specific type of wood that is a local one, the tamarisk, that is a strong wood that was used for the pegs and the tenon to fix the different planks. But on the other hand, for the planks, we identified an heterogeneous and mixed use of pieces of local wood, the sycamorus, the tamarisk, and also imported pieces of wood like cedar from Lebanon or cypress of different size. And all these informations are very useful because this use of small pieces, small planks fixed together thanks to textiles and stucco show that this workshop, it's always a problem to identify it, this artisan had access to this different type of wood in the same place and reused these pieces, maybe reused pieces, to make a new plank and new coffin. The study of these objects also allowed me to identify two processes used to protect the deceased of the body of the deceased, sorry. These two processes, employed together or separately, were used to protect the body of the deceased against the external incursions. The first one is the use of a red pigment applied at the time of the assembly on various zones perceived as vulnerable of the coffin box, and the other process is the use of protective formulas. Already evidence on coffins dated to the Middle Kingdom, this protective process were also identified on New Kingdom black coffins, illustrating the persistence of this double process reserved for wood. We just identified this on wood, which underwent a clear evolution during this period. Indeed, if the protective formulas were hidden in the Middle Kingdom at the level of the assembly zones, between the planks, so nothing was visible. In the New Kingdom, this red is also used, as you can see here, where the pieces of wood are joined. So you see the red is on the top of this part of wood, and this second part was fixed on it, but between both, there is this red. It's just a color. There is no glue, there is no other stucco or anything to make a connection. It's just an application of red, something that protects this opening space, even small, for protecting the disease of the incursion of bad things to destroy the body. And during this the New Kingdom, we have the use of these formulas that we identified on the Middle Kingdom coffins and that were hidden too. But what is interesting in the New Kingdom is that these formulas move on the top of the box. They are now visible. They are visible on the coffin, not for people. It's not to show this formula to one. It's just that these formulas are now on the top of the coffin that is now anthropomorphic. So these formulas protect the body. The coffin is the body. So it's protected by these formulas. So it's very interesting to see how same processes, same formulas are used continually from Middle Kingdom to New Kingdom and continue but have this change following the change of the funerary practices. This is a very interesting part of the study to see how the craftsmen knew how to protect the body at the moment of the construction. All this study of these black coffins were published by Lisa, Margaret Serpico, and I in the last bulletin of the French Institute, and it was the number 121. And in addition of this work, we were happy to present our work in the exhibition of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, an exhibition which celebrated 100 years of French excavations in Egypt. It was the first step of this project. It was interesting to show that this is very important, so it's nice to share with our Egyptian colleagues. So the first results obtained on the wooden furniture discovered in Deir and Medina are particularly promising. As you can understand, we are just at the beginning of this research and many projects are underway. Of course, we have to study all the coffins discovered on the field. The first, I start to sample this black coffin that will be studied totally in the next season. The next season will be in January 2022, I hope so. And so we will continue the study of these objects that are so numerous. Here you just see one coffin, one black one, but we have also yellow coffins dated to the 21 dynasty. We have a complete panel of the New Kingdom production. And it will be also the occasion to publish them, to have a better knowledge of what was used in Deir el-Medina, not, of course, not done. It's the question of everything was done in Deir el-Medina, everything was not done in Deir el-Medina. Some objects were made by the artisan of Deir el-Medina, imported from outside. This study gives all this information, and it's very interesting to see how the village is working with the outside, with the Theban area, and all the people working outside of this specific village. The other project is the project of Chiara Spinazzi, who is working in Copenhagen. The project is Egyan and is devoted to the study of the textile manufacturing. And for that, we sampled a lot of tools for textile production. You have on the top of this picture the spindles from the Ifao in the basement, but there you have all that we have to check the next mission. Of course, we will make choices because most of them are made of the same wood, so we have to select and not having a stupid sampling for everything to sample. No, just we of course stay confident in the future. Of course, what is very important for us is to preserve this heritage, to help this object that were stored from and that we are so lucky to have still until now because the weather is so dry, and Egypt is the only country for the Middle East to have this preservation of food. So we have to preserve it. So we work with different restorers from the French Institute. For example, here you have Mohamed Youssef Sedek on the right, who is restoring these small pieces of wood made of 7 or 8 pieces of small pieces of wood. And Eunice from the Ifao, who was gluing and preparing the pieces of the Shabti boxes. The other project, the other part of this project of studying woodcraft is, of course, the training of the restorer of wood, of the conservators of wood in the Ifao first. So we organized in collaboration with the colleagues from the University College of London, Dean Sully and Jan Kutajar, we are working in Institute of Archaeology in the University College of London as head of the conservation lab. We organized 2 trainings for the Ifao conservators around wood, and also for the Department of the Archives to work together to exchange about the techniques that they use in the UCL in outside of Egypt, and what the conservator of the Ifao can use on the field and also on this type of collection. And it was the occasion of discussion, the occasion of exchanges. It was very interesting, and everybody was very happy to share this because we always have something to learn from the others. So it was very interesting to repackage together the object, to have these specific techniques bring back from the UCL and the other information from Egypt. So in the future, and because everything was stopped, of course, with the COVID and everything, next year, I hope we will have a third session of training for the wood conservators from various Egyptian museums, from the Great Egyptian Museum, the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir, and also the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. Everyone will bring some conservators. It will be a workshop of a training workshop, but also the occasion to bring them with colleagues, restorers, working on the field in international missions, to bring all together to share the techniques that everyone used on the field in Egypt, because there is no publication of this. So everyone used a specific technique in a specific area of Egypt. Every area has its own problem. You have termites, you have humidity somewhere, you have salt problems, and you always have a big problem to find a specific material to do something on the field. But everyone finds a solution. And this workshop will be the occasion to bring everyone in the Ifao to discuss of all these techniques, to share all these techniques, and to publish this protocol of restoration of woods in Egypt in the Ifao. And of course, this protocol will be published in Arabic, English, and French. So it's a very important part of the project to preserve this heritage and to collaborate. And also, of course, we have to continue our amazing work about wood, because we have so many fields of research. Clarifying the artistic landscape of the wood craftsman requires multiplying the research fields and gathering a maximum of data to understand the modes of operations of this wood craftsmen, but also to redraw the trade routes used for the supply of raw materials or for the acquisition of manufactured objects. To respond to this need, the Medjehu project was created. Originating from the ancient Egyptian word Medjehu, which means carpenter, the Medjehu project aimed to identify artisanal practices, locate wood workshops, and better understand the social networks of wood in ancient Egypt. This includes, for example, the research that I'm personally carrying out with the Western Wood missions led by PERCEA in collaboration with Anna Giulia De Marco and Lisa Sartini on the wooden funerary equipment discovered in the royal necropolis dated to the reign of Amenhotep III. This ongoing work is a major source of knowledge to better understand the commercial networks used for the manufacture of wooden objects for royal wives and sons. In addition, the research that I'm carrying out in the Aswan region within the Elephantine Archaeological Mission directed by Cornelius von Pilgrim from the Swiss Institute in Cairo, and in the necropolis of Kubet el-Hawa in collaboration with the University of Jaén, directed by Alejandro Jiménez Serrano, highlight the close link that the Aswan area had with the Theban region and even higher with Middle Egypt for wooden funerary equipment trade. Yes, thanks to this interregional analysis, the wood routes are gradually being redrawn and highlight the way in which wood craftsmen moved from one side to another, but also how large manufactured objects such as cedar coffins were ordered from highly qualified craftsmen and then sent to their recipients, who were sometimes located several hundred kilometers from the place of their manufacture. It's exactly the case of this coffin production discovered in Kubet-el-Awad dating from the Middle Kingdom, and the analyses were made on show that they were made in Middle Egypt, so it was hundreds of kilometers on the north. But it's here that you see that objects are moving a lot. Craftsmen are moving a lot. But coming to the object, from the object, we can redraw this moving of the craftsman and of the object. Simultaneously with this research objective, the MEGEU project aims to conserve and protect this unique historical heritage through conservation mission in the field and in the museum. The MEGEU team consists of 7 Egyptologists, archaeologists, and conservators from international research institutes, all specialists in different aspects of ancient wood. Finally, all the team is working in the el-Medina project. A website which brings together all past and current projects dedicated to woodcraft has been created, highlighting the various projects led by the MEGEU team. In the continuation of this conference, a fundraising campaign will be launched to finance the numerous missions of the MEGEU project. The MEGEU Association for the Study and Conservation of Egypt's Wooden Heritage will be responsible for managing the funds that will finance the project's study missions and publications. We sincerely hope that it will be successful. The study of wood networks in ancient Egypt is a long-term project that is already offering results that shed new light on ancient Egyptian society. Using the object as a source of research, combining archaeometric analysis, technical, stylistic, and prosopographical studies, thanks to ongoing projects and collaboration, it will be possible to highlight the economic and social dynamics of woodcraft along the Nile. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture and this wonderful journey that we did into the wooden objects and all the implications they had, and also something that's so interesting for us as museum, how really the analysis and the research on the field can reconnect this Yekta membra, and we can have a leading war show and the box over there, but that gives so much information of the material culture we have. So on my part, I can always say that I want to intensify as much as possible the cooperation that we have, with the hope, inshallah, that we can be in the field in January if the pandemic allows. And anyway, we resist whatever happens.
Yes.
And we have a lot of work to do, and thank you for putting together the team, for setting up these multidisciplinary tasks, and for your enthusiasm and your resilience and willingness to carry on despite the enormous amount of work that is needed. But I think that the result will be of such an important value, both for the typological study, Egyptological study, from the recontextualization, and Last but not least, what you said about training and exchanging expertise and having on paper the way that you can work on the field in order to protect wood, but on the same time also a kind of an emergency protocol can be very useful also for what we have to do in museum as well all the time. And I think this is very important to have a kind of standard way of operating that can be applied by everyone. So I would like to give the word to possible questions or comments, either here or online.
Too much wood.
Too much food? No, well, some of our wood specialists, anything you would like to say, or? Well, if not, I thank you again for coming here tonight. I'm really looking forward for the prosecution of the project and the results it will bring for what has to happen in the field and in the museums as well. Because I also think that one of the huge achievements that you were commenting where you showed all the comps is also how in analyzing some of the material at a certain point you will have your data and you will enable also other collections to recognize without having the necessity of analyzing. And I found it very interesting also what you said about the nomina and how the category and definition of categories can be matched with the analysis in order to understand whether our categories match to what ancient Egyptian did, or whether ebony, for instance, was just dark wood or whatever. So good luck with the prosecution, and thank you for coming here, and thank you for all of you, and good night.